Alex Campbell was a waterman on Loch Ness most of his working life.
Well, during my working life, we were responsible for the preservation of the salmon stocks in these areas. Glenmorrison, Glengarry, Loch Ness, and all the other adjoining rivers. That was the main job. Then there was the hatchery work. I was expecting a run of fresh salmon, because as soon as they reach their home river, they jump and cavort about as though they were glad to be home. I was looking across, and then just off the Abbey boathouse, which is across there, and about 250 yards from where I was standing, suddenly there was a most terrific upsurge of water. Then the long tapering neck, small head which was turning very, I should say scared looking, and the huge humped body which I estimated at 30 feet long. I shut my eyes 3 times to make quite sure that I wasn't seeing something that that didn't exist. However, then I heard the noise of the engine of 2 fishing trawlers that had just come out from the canal locks and were heading for Loch Ness. I said to myself, oh, this is going to be interesting. And meanwhile, the head was even more excited, you see, the animal. I said to myself, this is going to be very exciting, because as soon as the bow of the first trawler comes within my line of vision, it'll also come within the animal's line of vision. Well, that duly happened. And as soon as the bow of the first trawler appeared, oh, a terrific plunge into the depth. Upsurge was fantastic.
Could this be Alex Campbell's monster? Some theorize that such creatures could have been trapped in Loch Ness during its primordial past, living relics of a lost world. The notion that creatures from the dawn of life on this planet still live among us is irresistible to many. It is proof they seek. For Ted Holliday, proof would be film of the monster, close up and in sharp focus.
I'd been up that particular morning for about 5 o'clock watching the Loch. When Mrs. Pickett finally came out to wash breakfast dishes about 9 o'clock, I strolled over to have a word with her. I left my camera behind me and I walked about 50 yards to chat with her. I turned and looked across the Loch. Well, actually, I looked over Mrs. Pickett's shoulder to a point about a quarter of a mile to the left of the Clandron Hotel, across that side. And I saw this huge black mass. It undulated into 3 humps, proceeding from right to left. It was going at a fair speed, and the water was swelling up from the front of it in a big white wash. And I said to Mrs. Pickett, can you see that? She said she could. I said, well, watch it while I get the camera. And I rushed and grabbed the camera, and immediately a voice shouted after me, oh, it's gone down. Well, I put up binoculars on the spot, and there was a huge whirlpool as though something had submerged into the Loch, a huge patch about 50 yards across.
Hundreds of cameras would be trained on the Loch this summer. The In Search Of camera would be among them and would capture a most remarkable event. The summer of 1976 was to be the beginning of the big push to find conclusive evidence that huge creatures live in Loch Ness. 3 major expeditions would prowl the lake. Some men, like Robert Rines of the Academy of Applied Sciences, were veterans of the chase. A veteran who could recall being hooked by a tantalizing glimpse of something big and unexplained, moving serenely just out of his reach.
Well, the first and only time was in, I believe, 1972, in June, near the summer solstice. We were with Wing Commander Carey and his wife, my wife. I think we were having coffee at their house, nothing stronger. Sure. And indeed, Basil Carey said, I say there, that doesn't look like an upturned boat. Out we rushed to the embankment near their house, and we looked down in the middle of Urquhart Bay. And there, though it was 10:30 in the evening, it was still quite light. There was a slight rain, but we unmistakably saw a giant hump in the water, move slowly out in the bay, turn around and come back, and then submerge. We had some telescopes, and we took turns not talking to each other, but looking through the telescopes and deliberately taking measurements with a 53-foot fishing vessel that was there. After all this was over, I went into the Carey's kitchen and taped what I had seen, the dimensions I thought I had seen, and then I individually taped them, and we were in unanimous view that we had seen some 22 feet of back of something that intellectually to each of us couldn't be anything other than a big animal, and about 4 to 6 feet out of the water at the apex.
How long will you keep searching?
Well, we're certainly going to stay here until we do find out one way or another by photographic and sonar evidence what these things may be. Maybe this year, maybe next year, goodness knows how long, but we're going to stick it out.
Adrian Shine is another veteran of the hunt, but he has chosen to track his quarry at Loch Morar, just above Loch Ness. Monsters have been seen here too, and the relative clarity of the water in Morar may give Shine an advantage.
We are laying out this year cameras, television cameras, beneath the surface in order to carry out a constant surveillance over some 3 months. We can lay the cameras down to 60 feet beneath the water and hope to get a silhouette of the creature passing over the top. We can get ranges underwater of nearly 100 feet. We have some conventional cameras as well, conventional 35mm cameras, but the video technique, in my opinion, is better because we have an immediate record. We don't have to process film, and of course we get a moving record as well. This tape was taken with the camera at 60 feet below the surface, and there's a diver at 20 feet from the camera. This is followed by a further tape of with the same setup and the diver at 40 feet from the camera and going up to the surface. You can see that therefore that we have at the surface at least 60 to 70 feet across the surface under surveillance.
The National Geographic Society has decided to focus its efforts on Loch Ness. By carefully charting the lake bottom with sonar and positioning cameras at strategic points beneath the surface, the geographic scientists hope to overcome the handicap of poor visibility. The task is to guess where the monster is most likely to be, then lure it to the camera. The geographic team knows that Loch Ness was formed by an upheaval of the Earth's crust, and that the trench created by that upheaval was enlarged by glaciers. The glaciers created a U-shaped bottom to the lake, but they did not completely obliterate the deep valleys which are characteristic of the region. So there are hidden depths to Loch Ness, depths capable of sheltering huge animals.